Hi, I'm Cody, and this week's edition of Ajax Tech Tips, we're actually going to do this with Doug, our Amsoil rep, about what oils to look for.
Hey guys, I've been an Amsoil rep for over 20 years now, and certainly I'm partial to Amsoil products, but the bottom line is what we're going to go over in this video is pertinent to all motorcycles and the proper lubricant selection regardless of whose brand of lubricant you're going to use.
Manufacturers recommend a specific type of oil. Can you tell me a little bit about why they recommend certain oils?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of misunderstanding, if you will, about whether you should use a motorcycle oil, whether you can use an automobile oil. And the bottom line is, if you look in the owner's manual of any motorcycle, you'll see recommendations from the manufacturer. Naturally, they're going to recommend the brand of lubricants they produce, but then you'll also see something that says, when this is unavailable, use the equivalent. And then they recommend that they want it to be a motorcycle oil specifically. And in most cases, they're also going to recommend that it has a certification that applies to the wet clutch.
And so why would you go with a motorcycle oil over a traditional generic oil?
Well, the reason you don't want to use an automobile oil, for example, is most motorcycles have a common sump. And what that means is the oil that you put in the bottom end, where the transmission or gearbox is also taking care of the lubrication for the rest of the motor. So it's taking care of dual roles, transmission fluid, if you will, and then engine oil. In an automobile, the transmission fluid is separate from the engine, and it's just advisable to use a motorcycle oil since we're dealing with motorcycles here. Probably the simplest thing without getting into technical data would be that most manufacturers today are recommending that you use a high quality synthetic motor oil. Doesn't matter what brand it is. Again, naturally I'm partial to Amsoil, but a good synthetic motor oil offers a lot better protection, and especially in the case of a motorcycle, it's a lot better at dissipating heat. And let's face it, these things generate a lot of heat. If we can keep them cool, we can make them last longer. So the biggest thing is use a good quality synthetic motor oil designed for a motorcycle.
So what would you say some of the biggest areas of confusion are when selecting a good motorcycle oil?
You know, probably, Cody, the biggest area of confusion is wet clutch compatibility. You'll hear some folks say, well, you can't use a synthetic because it'll make the clutch slip, or it has to be semi-synthetic. And really what you need to look for, and I can give you an example by looking at the back of these bottles here, you'll see a certification that's JASO MA, MA1, or MA2. JASO stands for Japanese Automotive Standards Organization, and the MA relates to motorcycle wet clutch. So you want to make sure, regardless of whose oil you use, that it says JASO MA, MA1, or MA2, or a combination of all. And that way you can rest assured that it's not going to cause any slipping issues with your clutch in your motorcycle.
All right, Doug, thanks for the information. And if you have more questions on what oil to use for your application, get in contact with us or contact Doug with USA Synthetics, and we'll get you hooked up.